Hey everyone, Mo Gerhart with the One Mo Moment podcast. Thrilled to be bringing you the second episode from season one. Lots of improvements with this episode. Video and audio have both been upgraded. We're going to continue to make those upgrades throughout this until we get things right. So hope you enjoy. Be sure to leave comments. Love to hear your thoughts. And here we go. Season one, episode two. Enjoy.
Discover the power of a single moment with One Mo Moment. Get ready to hear the pivotal moments that have shaped the lives of extraordinary individuals. From inspirational stories and professional breakthroughs to personal anecdotes and life-changing decisions, One Mo Moment uncovers the essence of what drives us forward. Listen to conversations with industry experts, creatives, and everyday heroes, each sharing their unique journeys and valuable insights. Get ready to be inspired, motivated, and moved, because one moment has the potential to change everything. Now here's your host of One Mo Moment, Mo Gerhart.
Welcome to another episode of One Mo Moment, the podcast where we dive into the pivotal moments that shape the lives of extraordinary individuals. I'm your host, Mo Gerhart, and today we have a truly special and honestly emotional episode for you in many ways. Joining us is Dr. Melissa Richardson, the extraordinary doctor who literally saved my life. This is a deeply personal story for me, and I'm honored to have the chance to share it with everyone who's listening. In this episode, we'll explore the incredible journey of Dr. Melissa Richardson in the medical field, the challenge, the triumphs she's faced, and of course, the life-saving moment that forever changed my life. We'll also delve into the emotional and professional aspects of being a doctor and what it takes to perform under pressure. So whether you're interested in the medical field, love hearing inspirational stories, or just want to understand the human side of healthcare, this episode is sure to be both enlightening and heartwarming. So let's get started. Dr. Richardson, thank you so much. Welcome to One More Moment. And honestly, it's such a huge honor to just be able to talk to you, to see you, and to have you on today.
I appreciate it, Mo. It's so good to see you too. And it's probably been too long. And I appreciate you asking me. It's an honor to talk with you as well. So I've missed you. You look great. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited to have you here. As you can see, just sort of smiling ear to ear. It's so overwhelming in so many ways, which obviously we'll get into here in the conversation. We're recording this here late in June, and this is going to actually be published during beginning part of July. And before we actually started recording, I was telling you or refreshing your mind that 5 years ago, July 7th, that was the day that I went into the ER and ultimately ended up in ICU.
Yeah. Wow. I cannot believe it was July 7th. That's insane.
That was pre-COVID, just barely.
Yeah.
I was in the hospital for 5 months from July to December of 2019.
Yeah.
And then it was that March of 2020 that all the shutdowns really started to happen, and everything within hospitals also got sort of a huge curveball, to say the least, and all the different protocols that went into place. I can't even imagine everything that you had to experience during that period.
Yeah, it was a lot. I've never experienced anything in my medical career like that, the changes that we had to make and not being able to operate, which is my passion. And I am very thankful that you were not in the hospital anymore, because it was scary, that disease. That was scary, that virus. Yeah.
I've talked with it very closely with my parents, my family, my brother, everyone that you met that was there. And at times we question whether or not, honestly, I would have survived. I think it's a very honest question, very honest concern. I would have been on my own for the most part. I wouldn't have been able to have their support of being there with me to help me through those decisions. So it's like I said, it's God worked in mysterious ways, And not that I'm thankful it did happen, but very thankful that the timing of it occurred when it did.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay, so let's get to know just sort of Dr. Richardson for a little bit here. If you don't mind, just sort of tell our listeners a little bit about your background as far as where you went to school, your interests within medicine, sort of how that started, and maybe just some other interests or experiences that you've had that we can sort of kick things off with.
Okay. So I'm actually an East Coast kid. I grew up in New Jersey. I went to undergrad in New York City at Manhattan College, and then I went to med school in Philadelphia. And then I came out here for some training, and I met my husband. So I always say I got stuck in Michigan, but I love it out here. So I've actually
Yep.
lived in Michigan longer than the East Coast now. It's crazy. So
Yeah.
and I always wanted to do surgery. I thought I would do orthopedics because I was an athlete growing up. I played basketball in college, and through injuries, you get interested in certain things. And I ended up doing a general surgery rotation my third year in med school, and that was it. I was sold. That was just what I was going to do. I just loved it, and I still love it. And so I went to internship, residency, all that kind of stuff in Detroit area. And now I've been in Lansing practicing as a surgeon now for like 27 years, which is embarrassing because that makes me feel old. But
It's
I
I
love
understand
it.
anytime you start assigning numbers to anything, it can have that effect to
Yeah,
it. But to me, that's just all about your expertise. We'll just leave it as that.
yeah, yeah. My experience. I have lots of experience.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Um, and I do all kinds of surgery. I love surgery. I mean, I do endoscopies, but I do tons of general surgery, which a lot of on the minimally invasive side. So little incisions and gallbladders and colon cancers and hernias and breast cancer. I mean, a whole
Yeah.
array of different things that I do. I do tracheostomies. I do, a lot of different things. So, I would say that, my husband is now retired, and we've been talking about like, when am I going to retire? And I got my kid still to get through PA school. So and he needs insurance, right? So I can't yet, but
Yep.
I just think, what would I possibly do? I can't imagine not operating. Like, I love it so much. So you said interest. Well, in college, obviously I played basketball. So I do like to still be an athlete in my mind, at my
That's
age,
right.
but,
Yep.
just keeping in shape and stuff like that. But I would say one of my biggest passions is mission work. I
Yeah.
started doing mission work actually when I was a resident. I went to Mexico. And then in the last probably 10 years or so, we were going to Haiti, which is not really an option now because it's not safe.
Yeah.
And then my last
Yep.
trip was in November to Honduras. And I love it. And if I could go 4 or 5 times a year, I would go. It's so rewarding, and it's just, people who have zero access to healthcare, like, we just take it
Yes.
for granted. We run to the ER when we have an issue and somebody takes care of us, it's just not like that everywhere. So I enjoy that. And that's a big passion of mine as well, which is another reason not to stop operating here, because then you can't do it there either. So
Right. Yeah,
I would
it's
say that's
amazing you sort of
probably
bring
my
that
big
up.
things.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
just the other week I actually was with just my primary healthcare doctor, Dr. Aaron Bohr, and
Yeah.
I know you know Dr. Bohr, and he was saying the same thing. He had just gotten back from Kenya, I believe it was. A
We
lot of
were
the
just
exact
talking about
same
that. That's so funny.
sentiments. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, small world, but
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
just amazing. First of all, that to be able to have the skill sets to be able to do something like that where you're really impacting humanity and being able to get back to populations that their needs and really what they have is so basic and so minimal that we take for granted, sometimes even just the
Yeah.
basic things that we have here and can take advantage of in the
Right.
United States.
Yeah, very much so. Very much
Yeah.
so.
So you did mention that medicine is in your family. I know your husband, as you mentioned, was also a doctor, and then also with MSU physician's assistants program. I know he had a big part
Right.
getting that going. I'm not sure where or what he still has as far as that is concerned, his responsibilities. Maybe you can share some of that, but then also with your kids and their interests, where they're headed in healthcare.
Yeah. So my husband was an emergency doc for 25 years in the Detroit area, and then he retired when my kids were in high school just to be around more for their activities. And he immediately got a job up here in urgent care because he couldn't take being retired. And then he worked at Eaton Rapids ER for a little bit, but now he really is clinically retired. He does work in the MSU PA program, which is new. This is only the third class that they've taken that just started a few months or a month ago. And he deals with their clinical rotation coordination, essentially. Like he puts them where they need to be in their last year to do the rest of their clinical learning, which is helpful because he has those connections as having been a doc and stuff. So he's loving that. And then Grace, my kids are twins. They'll be 23 next month. And Grace is actually finished nursing school at MSU, and she is working in the McLaren emergency room. So
very familiar
and she
with
loves
that.
it. She's very much like her dad. She loves the chaos, loves it. Actually just saw her there today since we were both working. And then Jacob finished at Hope College, played football there, and then graduated, did a gap year, and got into the PA program here, which is a really tough program. He's a couple months in, and all he does is study or go to school, which is great. So, but he's really looking forward to that. He'd like to be in a surgical field. He's gone to Haiti and Honduras with me and assisted me with surgery. So I think he's got the right skill set for it. So we'll see how he does. But yeah, I mean, the whole squad here is medical, and we're all MSU grads in some way or another. So it works out good.
You mentioned growing up being an athlete. As a kid, what did you sort of envision yourself grow up to be? And then once you finally did make that dive into medicine, what were maybe some of the key influences or mentors that you've had within your medical career?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good question. Okay. So I have to say, I was very young when I knew I wanted to be in medicine. I was only 12 years old in 7th grade. I don't know why. I don't remember a specific incident other than seeing an orthopedic surgeon for some different things. I played basketball, I ran track, I did field hockey, a lot of different things, but I don't know what the inciting event was. I had nobody medical in my family, nobody. But I just decided that was what I was going to do, and nothing was going to stop me. So I was fortunate enough to get a basketball scholarship to college because my parents could not afford that. I had 2 other sisters in college at the time, of 2 older sisters, and then on to med school. So like I said, initially I was going to do orthopedics because that's what I was familiar with. That's the kind of realm that I came from, and work with sports medicine and stuff. But I just love general surgery. And I think I was with a couple of surgeons in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. It was the rotation that I had. And they just had such a love for it. And they were such great teachers. And I think just like when you're a kid growing up in school, you might like math because you have a great teacher. You might like English because you have a great teacher. It's the same thing in medicine. If you have a good mentor or a good surgeon that is teaching you their trade, and they just made you fall in love with it. So I was lucky enough to have several of those during my training. And so I don't know. I feel so fortunate to have known young, because I feel bad for the kids who come up and go through med school and they're like 4th years and they like, I don't know what I want to do yet. I'm like, oh my God, I would be freaking out, So I'm happy to have been able to decide fairly early. So I've had a lot of great mentors. Like my residency was down near Detroit, like I said, and I had some great trainers down there. I feel like that residency prepared me to be an attending and be out in a practice and to be able to do a wide array of things. But I was at the cusp of open versus laparoscopic surgery too. So a lot of my training was open, but we were really getting into higher level laparoscopic procedures. So I feel like I've trained at the perfect time in medicine to be able to be, you know, on the cutting edge here, but also be able to go to mission trips wherever it is in the world, and it's they're like, this is what we have. We have this stick. Can you take someone's gallbladder out with that? And I'm like, yeah, sure, I can do that. You know what I mean? So it's just interesting. It's the perfect age range to have to be, I think, a missionary surgeon, honestly, because you've gotten the best of both worlds. So I mean, I love the people that I trained with at Botsford. I think they gave me incredible tools to move forward with.
I don't know the answer to this question, but I'm wondering, you mentioned when you came in, it was sort of on the cusp of that, and you've been able to have those experiences. Is there something new within medicine on the surgical side that you see as being exciting or groundbreaking or sort of being the next generation?
It's interesting, like even throughout my career, there's been, when we started, we didn't use robots. Now, there's a lot of robotic surgery going on. There was a lot of studies on what's called NOTE, this is weird, and I apologize for any listeners. This is like warning in progress, but it's called natural orifice surgery. So like they could go down through your esophagus and into your stomach and make a hole in your stomach and go into your abdomen and take out your appendix or your gallbladder or whatever. That was always talked about, even from the time I was a resident. People have done that, but it's certainly not mainstream. But that was always one of the things, like, oh, are we all going to be doing that by the time we're done,
Yeah.
And the answer right now is no. But it's a novelty, I think, more than anything. But I think with robotics, the one thing that can be enlightening, I was just talking to one of our urologists today at the hospital about this, is that it was really formed initially for the military so that they could have tools in one country, but a surgeon in America or wherever that's running a robot and doing procedures when you can't have that surgeon there all the time. And so I would love to see that happen more often. The military may be doing it, and maybe we just don't know about it so much. But in a access hospital, like let's say Eaton Rapids Hospital, they don't have a robot. They can't afford it. It's several $1 million, right?
Yeah.
But they have them in Lansing. So could you have a patient down there, but the surgeon's here? Could there be a little bit more collaborative effect with that? That would be interesting to see.
That's one thing, obviously, in the medical field, always evolving, and those types of areas where you never say never. You just don't know what that next evolution may be.
Yeah.
So we're going to get into my case here in a little bit, but I do want to ask you, throughout your career, can you think of any memorable cases or experiences or situations that sort of jump out that are maybe memorable for you in your own special ways?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many over the years. Honestly, what's interesting is one of my favorite cases of all time was actually in Haiti. Several of my cases, and I think it's just because you can make such a big difference there, so quickly. But a couple of cases there. One was a young guy, probably 18, 19 years old, with this big, what we call like a scar tissue tumor on his ear. It was the size of a grapefruit. Okay. And the thing in Haiti is that you can't go to work or go to school because they believe in all this voodoo and all this stuff. And they're like, you did something bad, so you can't be around people, which is super sad, super, super sad. And it's just because he fell off a roof and had an injury to his ear. So I saw him when I was down there. And, I don't really do plastic surgery. I can do skin grafts and little things, but they just were like begging me, can you please do something for him? And I wish I had the pictures in front of me to show you, but it was amazing. Like this big giant thing on his ear. And it took me like 3.5 hours to whittle that down to look like a fairly normal ear. But the picture of him face forward before surgery and the day after when we took the dressings down was just worth everything that I've ever gone through to get through to medicine and surgery, because it changed his life. He went to school, he got a job. I mean, that to me is like better than anything you could almost do here,
Better
other
than
than
sure.
save someone's life, obviously.
than-
But yeah, I mean, those types of cases are just, they'll stick with you forever. I think another one is a gentleman came down there. He was in the jail down there, and they came to me with just severe abdominal pain, and I thought, oh, he must have ruptured his appendix, and now he's got, badness in his belly. And I had one time previously, maybe 15 years before, with a case with one of my attendings, seen a particular type of tuberculosis in someone's abdomen. And this is where you say, there's a God thing behind this, right? So
Yeah.
I take this guy to surgery and I open him up and I look at it and I'm like, that's miliary TB. That's what we call all these little bumps all over his bowels. So I took some biopsies and I brought him home with me, and it was TB. And we were able to send medications back in with the next group that was going in, and he was cured. And it was just like, okay, if I had never seen that before, I wouldn't have known what to do, What's awesome about that too is those people come back year after year to see us and take pictures with us and tell us how good they are. And there's just nothing that feels that good, So I would say those are probably two of the biggest cases for me.
We'll sort of segue then. You mentioned the abdominal pain. That's honestly what brought me into the hospital. We go back to 2019. I had actually been having stomach abdominal issues for a few months. It seemed like it had just sort of progressively been getting a little bit worse and worse. Had actually gone to see my primary a couple times, and we hadn't been able to get any answers. I remember it was Friday, July the 5th. I remember it was the day after the 4th of July. I went in to see him again because it had just really started to just affect my daily living as far as the comfort goes. And so we had scheduled then for that next week some imaging. They'd already done some primary ones, but this was going to be a little bit more in depth. And I remember him saying, if it gets worse prior to the imaging, I want you to go into the ER. So that was on a Friday. Saturday, things continued just to spiral. So I had talked with my parents, and for better or worse, had said, I don't really feel like going into the ER on a Saturday night, but I will go in tomorrow, Sunday morning. And so Sunday, we went in, and this is all I remember. I remember checking in. I remember being called back into our room and starting to tell the nurse what my symptoms were. And then from there, I go black for almost a straight week. Have basically maybe 1% memory of the different things that happened. And that's honestly where both you and Dr. Christine Perry enter into my life, not just enter into my life, but give me continued life. And so that's where I want to actually sort of have you to sort of step in at that point and tell the audience a little bit about your memories from that experience, and we can sort of go from there.
One of the biggest things I think was the way I knew who you were because I had been to, Susie's games and stuff like that. And I got a call from her. She was down south, I think,
Kentucky.
Recruiting, I think at the time.
Yes, yep. It's like, we actually talked about this
okay.
in her episode that was just aired last week.
Okay.
Yeah, she was actually down in Kentucky recruiting, and she was in a gym watching a game when she got the call from my dad.
Yes. And so I remember her calling and talking to me and was like, hey, I just can you do me a favor? I'm getting in my car. I'm going to come back. But Mo is in the, you may have been in the ICU by that time, I think, when I came into play. But can you see him? I don't really know what's going on, but he's really, really sick, and they consulted somebody else, but we really want you to see him. And I'm like, sure. Okay. And I came in and met your amazing family. I mean, they were just like, everyone was there. And I met you as well, obviously. And you you really didn't want anything to do with me. You
Yep,
didn't want
that
anything to
yep,
do with
definitely
being
gonna
there.
yeah,
I think was
we're gonna get into
was the
that, yes,
biggest thing.
for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And so I just came to evaluate you and talk with your family and kind of see, what could we do to make you feel better and what was going on. Um, so that's how I got involved. I called and talked to the other surgeon who had initially been consulted and said, "Hey, the family had," and they were like, "That's okay, we didn't care." We're pretty cordial that way. In that, like, if somebody has somebody come in that they know or know of somebody, that kind of thing. So that's where I came in. Was I think you were already in the ICU. I don't think I ever saw you in the ER. I think you maybe had already been there for a day, maybe even in the ICU. And you were kind of, in and out really at that point, struggling with your breathing and stuff like that. So we had a couple bridges to cross.
I know I blacked out when I was in the ER, and then, as you said, from
Mhm.
stories that many people have told me when I was in ICU, very agitated, very upset, not in my own mind, I think, really knowing what was going on. I do remember some specific hallucinations that were actually happening during that time, but I know it's funny now, but obviously not at the time. But apparently, I got very upset at my brother, very upset with you, and then my best friend, Kevin Sonneman, that was also came to visit.
Yes, I remember
Apparently,
Cloud.
I got upset with him too. I don't, like I said, know exactly what was going on. I know it wasn't
Yeah.
anything that I was aware of. As I said, that whole week was basically it. There's nothing in my memory as far as that goes. So a couple of things, and we've had plenty of time to talk about this in person. But but one, I'm just so thankful for, first of all, your professionalism, because I was not a great patient. I was not someone that was excited to see you or thankful for you or even willing to, in many ways, even accept what was going on. So, first of all, just the professionalism that you had to maintain at that point in time still, in many ways, blows my mind as far as where you and I have been able to grow to and where our relationship is now compared to how it started off. Because it it's very tough for me to know that that's who I was in that moment. I know I've broken down in your office of being
Yeah.
able to go back and rehash and not know those things that were going on. But once again, I'm just so thankful for your professionalism to not allow that to impact your care for me.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Honestly, it's really just recognizing, I think, and it really was no fault of your own. It was the disease process that was going on. It was the hallucination, excuse me, all the medications, being out of your environment, all of those things play into that whole scenario that just kind of set up, to see you in that state and to see how your family was. I knew that that wasn't you, right? Even though I didn't really know you at the time and that was really me first meeting you, I knew that wasn't you. So I think it was pretty easy to be like, okay, this is obviously everything else that's going on. And we just have to push through this. We have to get to where we need to get so that you don't succumb to what was going on, and so that we could help
Yep.
you because you had obviously still a lot more to do at that time. So I think the thing that for me that sticks out the most about your care was the decision for the trade. And I think that was heartbreaking all the way around for everybody. It was such an emotional thing because of what you do, right? Your gift and your job and everything is your voice. It's your intellect. It's your communication with people. I mean, it's just so to be able to get past the time frame when you weren't going to be able to talk for a while was the hardest decision that you probably had to make. I don't know if it's ever, or at least certainly in the last 5 years.
No, definitely it's forever. And I can go even into a little bit more detail with that. And also for our listeners. So in that sense, what had happened with my muscular dystrophy, my lungs had lost the strength where the oxygen that I was bringing in, I was not able to exhale at the same rate, the carbon dioxide. And so basically over a period of a few months, my body had just been continuously poisoned because it hadn't been able to reach that equilibrium, which nobody knew. So then when I was in the ER, in the ICU, I was intubated. And I think that's where that conversation, like you're saying, with my parents really started to take place as far as, okay, what is the next step, if there is a next step? Because had I not gone to a trach, you can't be intubated for that length of a period of time. And so that would have had to have obviously come out, which then would have resulted in me passing away if I had not gone to the trach.
Right.
And honestly, Dr. Richardson, I don't think I've ever shared this with you. And quite honestly, I think only my mom had ever even heard me even talk about this. Having muscular dystrophy growing up, I've had many friends that had to have trachs. Some of them decided not to go that route. Others decided to go that route. And in my mind, I had always thought I did not want to go the directions of using a trach. And I think too, that's where during those days when I said I was having those hallucinations where I was very ornery, lots of that was trying in some way to process what was going on, but still not having the capability to process what was going on.
To be clear-headed,
One thing, to be able to, to be clear-headed enough to understand the ramifications, and through that being intubated. The other thing is I couldn't verbally communicate. I was without any speech. So basically it was handwriting that was going on my end. And this is what I remember. As I said, there's about 1% of what I remember from those sort of 4 or 5 days. I remember somehow there being a deadline of about 24 hours being put in place at some point along the way, and that I would need to make that decision within those 24 hours as far as what my course of action, if any, was going to be. And I remember you coming in, and I don't remember a discussion, but I do remember in this notepad writing the word yes and underlining it probably about 10 or 15 times. And that was to basically say, yes, I want to go through with the trach. And what I remember is your response to me. And you basically saying something to the effect of, Mo, is this your decision? It needs to be yours and not just other people's. And that's when I remember getting sort of ticked off, pissed off, whatever you want to call it, and underlining that word about 20 more times. And that's about my 1% recollection of that week. As I said, I remember upsetting people, but not being straight-minded, but somehow in that moment, God gave me that will, that ability to communicate and to also comprehend what was going on, to where I could write the word yes in a notepad and then underline it probably about a good 30 times for emphasis to let you know that I had made my decision.
Yeah. Yeah. I think my concern, and we always want to make sure we're really doing what our patients really want, and that I'm not talking them into it or putting my decisions on them. And the same for the family, because obviously your family wanted you around. So all of your
Yep.
family wanted you to have it, which is completely understandable. But you had been saying no, 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 no. So I think for me, it was really important to know that you really wanted it, because I didn't want to do anything to you that
Yep.
if you improved later, you would be like, I can't believe you did this to me, you know?
Yep.
So that was my biggest
Yep.
fear going forward, even after we did the trach, until once you got better. And I think I realized that you were glad that you did it and you felt like you made the right decision.
Yeah, without a doubt. So many things have happened in my life, and I've talked to this about Susie too. God definitely has a plan, and we don't know what that plan
Always.
is. It's not always even our job to figure out what that plan is, but things happen,
Nope.
and lots of times it is 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road when you can look back and actually see what that plan was. I was in the hospital, like I said, went in on July the 7th, came home on December the 5th. And in that 5-month period, I remember many nights praying, talking to God, and telling him, I'm ready.
Really.
I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I don't have that fight left in me. And if you're ready for me,
Yeah.
I'm ready to come. And I never prayed that I wanted to die, but I prayed that if it was my time, that I was ready. And obviously God still had plans for me, and he wasn't ready. And I fully believe that. The things that I've been
Yeah.
able to experience, meeting my girlfriend Jennifer through all of this, who was a nurse,
Yeah.
that is in itself just a work of God. And to be able
Yeah.
to have her in my life, and I've never been happier. I never envisioned my life with a trach. Like I had said, I'd had many friends that had chosen both options, and I think that is a very personal decision, and I don't think there is a right or wrong decision. I think it is very individual, and I'm very thankful that you walked me through that process and were there with me and didn't take that first yes as just a flat out yes, and did challenge me in some ways or question me to make sure that was what I wanted, because it is a very
Yeah.
serious, a very invasive, very life-changing process. And even after that procedure, it was still, like I said, I went in July of 2019. It wasn't until August of 2020 that I had actually then
Yeah.
regained the ability to speak and to talk again. So
Yeah.
even through that rehab process, it was another year where I had no language. And that was also an experience that has impacted my life in many ways. It's also taught me to look at situations differently, to take a step back sometimes, and it's not always what comes into your head first or the first words that want to come out of your mouth that necessarily are going to be the right answers or the best answers, that there is value, there
Right.
is worthiness in taking your time and figuring out what is best in all situations. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely
We should
something
probably
that's
all do that
been
a bit,
a
right?
huge force. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I mentioned this with Susie. My dad passed away earlier this year, and going up
Yeah.
to that point in time, within parent-child relationships, I think it's natural that there's highs and there's lows. It's constantly something that's always evolving. And prior to going into the hospital, I wouldn't say my dad and I were on bad terms with each other, not even close, but we were definitely not at our closest. I can say that. And when I then lost that ability to talk, lots of people, it was basically a lip reading experience with me then. And my dad, I can joke about this now, and I know he's looking down at heaven and laughing and smiling and agreeing with this. He was the worst out of anybody of trying to read my lips.
I remember that
It's not even close.
actually.
It's not even close. But
Oh, he
what
was so
happened through
sweet though.
what happened through that though is the silence that occurred actually brought my dad and me a lot closer, because it was no longer about
Mm.
differences. It was no longer about politics. It was no longer about all these outside things that in the grand scheme really don't mean anything. And instead, it
Right.
became about a father and a son. And that brought us back together. And once again, it's just one of those God-driven things. Through something awful,
Mm-hmm.
something amazing and beautiful happened. And from that point
Right.
up until the day, January 22nd of this year, when he lost his life to kidney failure, we were as close as we had ever been. And I'm so thankful for that too, that's,
Yeah.
one
That
of
time.
the results. Yeah, we had that time.
Yeah. 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 That's awesome. I mean, it's one of those things, like you said, it's to me and you, it's a God thing that you decided to go through with that, and all of the things that you've been able to experience, or relationships, bettered, or whatever it might be. I'm thankful because I wouldn't really know you if it
I know.
wasn't for that. Because I would have just known you as the guy who told me no, so, but yeah,
And that's putting it
it's
nicely.
been an
Once again,
honor.
that's putting it kindly from the stories I've heard
Yeah.
from family and friends.
That's okay. So,
That's right.
yeah, and just I mean, you're an inspirational guy to me. Like reading your book and stuff, just like it's amazing what you've done in your life with the cards that you were dealt. And you could say that strength for sure comes from God, but you have to be able to accept that as
Yes,
well, and
very much. There's
trust
a lot of
that
acceptance
you know
that
there's
has to come
there's a
into play.
purpose. And yeah, yeah, so you inspire me as much as I may have inspired you at one tiny piece of your life, but yeah.
Oh, it's definitely more than just a little tiny piece. Like I said, it's a huge moment that I look back on, and there's a reason why I wanted you on here as a guest for this podcast, because there would be no podcast if it wasn't for you. And you can say that in a way that sounds, like hyperbole or something along those lines, but it's not. That's legit. That's the truth. That's facts. And without you, I don't have the things in my life that I do right now. I don't have that period of time with my dad. I don't have the amazing girlfriend that I do in Jennifer. And then being able to be part of her kids' lives and have that fulfillment, as 'cause I'd never been a parent. I'd never had kids of my own or anything like that. So being able to have those experiences in my life, it's been an amazing dream that's really a reality. So I don't know if you can go back a little bit, I guess, to get a
Yeah.
little bit more on the medical sides, to talk about the actual procedure as far as the tracheostomy and as far as what was all entailed.
Yeah.
Just to give a little details as far as that goes.
Yeah. So basically what it is, we all have a windpipe that we breathe through, and we breathe through our mouths, our nose, that kind of thing. And when Mo said before that he was intubated, we've all kind of seen this on medical shows, but it's a tube that goes into your throat and down into your windpipe. And then we actually blow up a balloon so no air can get around the tube. So everything's going in and out of the tube, and you're hooked to a ventilator. Well, obviously, once something goes through the vocal cords can't open and close, so you can't talk. So that's why you can't talk when you're intubated. And so it's a helpful thing, but it's meant to be temporary. And typically we say up to 2 weeks, we would keep somebody on a ventilator. But if they needed it past that, Then what we do is we convert to what's called a tracheostomy, because we're going through the skin and right into the trachea below the level of the vocal cords. So that when we take the tube out, now the vocal cords are able to move. But typically, initially, the tube we put in down here and blow up a balloon is a solid tube. So it does the exact same thing as the breathing tube or the endotracheal tube, and you can't push air through it. All your air is coming in and out through that tube. The goal is once the person's lungs are strong enough or they're rehabbed enough where they can breathe on their own without the ventilator, then we can change that trach out to what we call a fenestrated trach, or it has holes through it. So when you exhale, you can have air come out the tube, but you can also have air come up through your vocal cords, which is how we speak. So until you get to that point, you can't speak at all, which is why Mo was writing or we were trying to lip read.
Right.
And try to communicate in that way. But once you can get to the point, which Mo did over time, going back and forth on the ventilator to strengthen him and let him rest, he eventually could have a talking trach, if you will, where he can push air up through his vocal cords to be able to talk like he is today. So the procedure is actually, it's not a hard procedure, but it takes maybe a half an hour to do. But people who are very dependent on the ventilator, it's very intense at the time that you're switching out the endotracheal tube to the trach, because even 30 seconds off the ventilator, somebody can crash pretty quickly. And Mo was very dependent on the ventilator at that time. So that's always I'm because I'm a surgeon, probably I'm pretty anal about the way I do things, right? So I go into these procedures and we get the dissection down to the trachea, and then I have a tray right to my right. I'm right-handed, so and it has everything in a row that I'm gonna need, and everybody in the room is all eyes on what's going on. And we talk to each other. We communicate to anesthesia, we communicate to the nurse, and it is just like, if you're set up, I always believe, like, if you're prepared, right, everything goes well. But if you're not, bad things can happen. So luckily, we were able to do yours without a problem and no complications with that. So, and I have to say that I am I'm very happy to have been one of the people that helped you get your voice back, because I think that it's not just important for everybody, but it's super important for you because of what you do. And I mean, I don't know, I might get emotional saying this, but like when your emotions and your desperation when it came to not being able to use your voice was so heart-wrenching and so compelling that to be now all the way down on the other end of that and that other side. I can remember when you were going through the rehab and trying to talk, and I came over and you kind of showed me where you were at and stuff, and just thinking, God, he's working so hard to get back there. And so I'm grateful to have been a part of that, and I'm so glad that you got to that point.
Yep. I mean, I remember the first was just being able to say the 5 vowels, like A-E-I-O-U. That was it.
Mm-hmm.
And that basically
exhausted.
Yeah, that exhausted me to be able to get that out. Slowly it built to the alphabet. Then you had some basic single syllable words, but yeah, it was a full year. And once again, I marvel at your strength, your abilities to be able to do everything that you do on a regular basis. And I know, as you've said a couple times, you minimize it, but it is a life and death variable. And some of that too, I wonder, how do you deal with those stresses? How do you cope with everything that you see? Because not everything does turn out to be a happy ending, and I can't imagine those emotions. So I guess, what are some of your coping skills?
Yeah, honestly, for me, it's a lot of faith and prayer and trust in God because I can't do it on my own. I mean, I have great support with my family, my husband, and I think because he's in medicine, he understands it as well,
Yeah.
and my
Yeah.
kids are starting to understand it. So I have a great support system in a small group from my church and people that we have been friends with in the church for since my kids were 6 months old. So that's sort of my tribe, that I go to. But I and wouldn't lie if I was, not honest by saying that like there have been times where I have just broken down. I mean, I can remember doing a surgery on a guy. This has got to be 18 years ago. So, and he had pancreatic cancer, and we went in to operate on him, and all we could do was just like sort of bypass him or allow him a level of eating, but that was it.
Yeah.
And I remember going in to talk to him and his wife and then walking out in the hallways. And this is the first time I've probably ever done this. I was maybe a few years into practice, so maybe it was like 25 years ago. And breaking down in the hallway. And the nurse is like, oh my God, Dr. Richardson, are you okay? And I was like, no, I'm really not, So there are those times when you have to tell people things or things don't go well or someone dies that are really difficult. But I think that I get through. I don't know how people who don't have faith or trust in God, I don't know how they do it because I could not do it and do what I do every day without that. I get up in the morning. One of my rituals is, and it has been for I don't know how many years now, is I get up at between 4 and 5 in the morning and I get ready for work. But then I spend about, I don't know, 30 to 40 minutes at least reading the Bible, doing a devotional, praying, because I have to start my day that way. I don't know how anybody, I don't know how they don't, because I don't think that I would be a great person without that, because there is a lot of stress and there's a lot of expectation and pressure every day. I love what I do, but a lot of that comes with it. And I think that that's the only way that I can get through those things. Honestly, that's my routine. And I know it. If I have a day, like when I'm on call, I don't do call anymore because I have lovely people at the hospital that still like to do that. Those young boys, they want all the call they can get. So, but so I think that when I was on call and I would miss that in the morning, like I could just tell, like I knew, like, oh, it's way better for me to start my day that way.
I can fully appreciate it. Like I said, when I was in the hospital to this day, the conversations with God, it's what's been able to get me through, pull me through, push me forward. And sometimes it's also what's been what I'll call my psychiatrist, just being able to dump those feelings, dump those stresses, because I know that's what he wants. He's there to be able to take those on. And there's good days and bad days for everyone, but it's all part of the journey.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, so now we are getting a little close to the end here, but I do have one thing that's going to be a little bit more lighthearted, a little more fun.
Okay.
So this is actually called One Mo Minute. So what this is, it's going to be 60 seconds. It's just some rapid fire questions. So there's the first thing that comes to your mind. That's what you can answer. Nothing deep, nothing hot and heavy, anything like that. We're going to put 60 seconds on my timer here. And the clock will not start until after I finish asking the very first question. So your goal is to get through as many as you can. So you ready?
Okay.
All right.
I'm ready.
All right, here's the first question. What is your favorite hobby?
I would say reading.
Well, what's the last book you read?
I can't remember the name of the book. It was by Kristen Hanna, and it's about World War II, and it's about the girl who gets people over the mountains. Yeah, I'm so sorry. I can't remember the name of it.
That's right.
Yeah.
So for coffee or tea?
Coffee.
What's your favorite movie?
Oh, maybe Elf.
So what's your favorite holiday?
Easter's the best.
Oh, wow.
We wouldn't, have what we have without Easter.
All right, your dream vacation destination.
Typically a beach for sure, but maybe one of the favorite places that I've visited is Barcelona.
If you could meet any historical figure, who would it be?
That's a really Jesus.
And your go-to karaoke song.
Oh my goodness. I would have to say maybe Don't Stop Believing by Journey. It was the first concert I ever
Okay.
went to.
Your biggest pet peeve. Your biggest pet peeve.
Smoking.
Oh,
Maybe
okay. All right.
smoking. I can't.
And we'll close off with one last one here. What is your favorite way to unwind after a long day?
Oh, puzzling.
Jigsaw puzzles?
Love
Or
puzzles.
more like
yeah.
word
Yeah.
word
Yeah.
puzzle that all of anything like
No.
that? No.
Yeah, jigsaw puzzles. I love
Okay.
them. My
Okay,
daughter and
what's-
I are obsessed. We do them all the time.
Real okay. What's maybe the largest jigsaw puzzle that you can think of that you completed as far as puzzle pieces?
3,000. But the
Okay.
hardest puzzle I've ever
Hardest
done
one,
was
yeah.
during COVID. It took me 3 weeks, and it was all zebra heads.
Ooh.
It was the hardest puzzle I've ever done. Yeah.
Did you frame
So
it?
that one was probably about 1,000. I didn't. I almost threw it out, but no, I didn't. So
All right. Well, you made it through your one moment.
thank you.
No, thank you.
It was
And
fun.
honestly, once again, thank you so much for everything. And when I say everything, it's one of those rare instances where that's the truth. You'll always be a part of my life. You'll always be a friend of mine now. I'm so thankful that I've been able to share with you once I stopped hallucinating, once I was myself and not that guy that
Yeah.
you met in the hospital. But thank you for being able to utilize your expertise and continue my journey.
Well, I appreciate it, and I'm so thankful that you're where you are now, and I do consider you a dear friend, and I'm just happy for you. I'm super happy for you, and I appreciate you so much having me on because it was a lot of fun.
So thank you for joining us on this meaningful episode of One Mo Moment. It's been an honor to have you, Dr. Richardson, with us here today, sharing your incredible journey along with the life-saving moments that not only myself, but have impacted so many of your patients. Thanks for not only being here, but your unwavering dedication and expertise into the field of medicine. For our listeners, if you found this episode to be as inspiring as I have, please subscribe to the One More Moment podcast. Leave a review. Your support helps us continue to share these powerful stories. Stay tuned for our next episode. We're going to explore more pivotal moments with extraordinary guests. But until then, remember to cherish every moment and appreciate the heroes among us who make these moments possible. Thank you for listening. Take care and have a wonderful day.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of One Mo Moment. We hope you were inspired by the incredible stories and insights shared today. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Don't miss our upcoming episodes where we'll continue to explore the pivotal moments that shape extraordinary lives. Stay tuned for more inspiring guests, powerful stories, and valuable lessons that will motivate and move you. Join us next time for another unforgettable One Mo Moment. Until then, remember it's not the diagnosis that determines your outcome.